Well, welcome everyone to this live session of 2-week refresher course in computer science on next generation technologies. We have Dr. Rishi Mohan Bhatnagar with us. Dr. Bhatnagar is president of Eris India. He brings a wealth of telecom experience to Eris, including heading digital services for 10 years in Europe, 5 years in America, and 6 years in India. Prior to joining Eris, he was global head for digital enterprise services at Tech Mahindra, where Dr. Bhatnagar spearheaded the Internet of Things initiatives for the company and smart city projects for the Mahindra Group. Along with a team from Bosch, he co-authored the book Enterprise IoT, which covers IoT projects management frameworks and methodology proposed in this book has been accepted by the Industrial Internet Consortium, IIC. Dr. Bhatnagar is the chairperson of the Institution of Engineering and Technology, IET, recognized in India as a meeting place for sector leaders to interact and support standards, policies, and innovation. He also is a member of the NESCOM Regional Council and the core group by the Confederation of Indian Industry, and he received the Digitalist Thought Leader Award in the Internet of Things category at the Digital Transformation Forum 2015 by SAP India. Dr. Bhatnagar holds a PhD in IT and computer science from Singhania University, Rajasthan, India. On this note, I request Dr. Bhatnagar to take over, and I request the participant to post their questions in the YouTube chat box. We will take them in there. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vipin. Thank you for inviting me for this session. Am I audible? If you can just say yes or no.
Yes. Sir.
Thank you. Because in the virtual session, one of the most difficult part is you don't know if people are hearing it or not. But I'll try to do my job. As Vipin kindly, gave my introduction, as I am chairing many of the associations. Internet of Things, this digital revolution is something which I am passionate about, and I will be taking you through, some of the how things are moving in the IT, in the telecom world, in the IoT world, in the digital world, so that as a faculty you will be in a position to understand how the future is moving and how you all have to prepare yourself for the future. A small introduction, I did my master's from IMT Ghaziabad, then my PhD, and then I am also working on the IoT frameworks for the government of India, as well as for many other SAARC countries and Southeast Asian countries as well. So I usually start my presentation with this slide, and 11,000 years back was the first time when the mankind was arrived on this earth. And people started thinking that, yes, there is a mankind, and that's the first proof that started coming to us. A lot of things happened during these times, but it was in 1800s when the Industrial Revolution started. That means it took 11,000 years for a human mind and for our mankind to see a revolution. So what is a revolution? Okay, a revolution is something which gives three different changes. One, the technology change, because of which the productivity of productivity changes to the nth time. Then there's a society change, and there are business models that get changed. So the first revolution, which is the Industrial Revolution, came, and that was the first time there were factories in Europe. Factories started producing using technology, cloth, and people who are spinning the wheel, who used to take days to do a 1 meter. Now there is a kilometer worth of clothes that can be produced in one day. That was the height, how the productions or the productivity improved because of technology. In a similar fashion, the society changed. I took a photograph and searched for this photograph because that was the first time the women started coming out for work. And this was a much bigger change in the society. Universities started, the books started getting published and printed, so on and so forth. So there was a huge change in the society, and also the business models were changed. The second revolution is the one where most of us were present, which was the internet revolution. That happened in 1990s when the internet telecommunication started happening. And we all can see, how the computer has revolutionized everything, whether it's society, whether it's productivity, or whether it's the business model. And today we are into the Internet of Things or the digital technology, where the hardware will start talking to the hardware. The sensors will give you data, and the fans and the all other machines can start communicating to us, telling where they are, what they are doing, how is their health, so on and so forth. And you can use with the huge amount of data that will come, we can start using it for many other, uh, you know, decision making. As a result, there's a different kind of business models, there are different kind of productivity, there are different kind of social norms which are coming up because of the digital. So we are in the third revolution. But before moving from this slide to the next, I like to compare these three revolutions. During the first revolution, India was under the rule of British. No one was training us, no one was skilling us, no one was telling us that there's a factory of clothes that's going to start in Nottingham or England, which will take away the jobs of the spin weavers. So Charkha people will lose their job. Because of that, a lot of people lost their job, and we became a market, and we had an extremely bad financial state because of the uh, first revolution. But during the second revolution, we were ruled. We had our own government, and the government started utilizing the internet revolution. We have so many things which are related to computers now. 250 billion US dollar worth of IT services industry in India is an example of how properly we utilize the uh, the second revolution. And the huge amount of jobs all over the world, people are using it. Today is the third revolution, where we have a Skill India, Stand Up India, Startup India, so on and so forth. So the government is preparing us to take the best use of this revolution. Now I go back to the second revolution. They are the best mind of India. They went out to find and create entrepreneurs, themselves as entrepreneurs. Today's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Microsoft, all of them have, at a senior level, those Indians who had moved out of India during the second revolution time. Why did they go? They went because India didn't provide them the infrastructure or support to create Microsoft in India, to create LinkedIn, create Facebook, create Google in India. And all of them had to go, and they had to go to United States and many other European and Japanese countries, create such kind of technology. But in today's world, government and other people are really supporting the creation of those startups, creation of those unicorns, the unicorns, the billion-dollar valuated companies in India. And as on date, we have number of unicorns in our country, which are really helping us to take the level to the next level. Hence, we are in a different world altogether, and the government is really supporting, and the ecosystem and the environment is there to create another Google, another Facebook, another Twitter, another LinkedIn, so on and so forth. Another thing which is common when the first revolution happened, industrial revolution happened, and or whenever the revolution will happen, people will lose their jobs, but there will be new jobs that will get created. That means people have to unskill themselves and people have to reskill themselves so that they can retain their jobs, they can continue using their job, continue doing their job. And that's the most important part of this particular journey, which I really like you to discuss with your students, discuss among yourself, that every revolution brings job losses, a new kind of jobs, a new kind of businesses. An Ola-like company with no cars is becoming the largest platform for car hiring. OYO, with no hotels of their own, is now the largest hotel services provider. So on and so forth. So we have so many examples of in our life where we can see that there are different kind of business models which are getting generated. And I give you another example before I go to the next slide. In 2006, when for the first time the iPhone came, okay, people were thinking about what this phone is, and I personally was part of launch of iPhone by AT&T by doing some level of testing and many other things on that device. But today that device has completely eliminated the camera industry or the print photo camera industry. The small transistor that used to come, they are no more there. And if you start, the whole camera industry, when I say that there were film reels, there were colors, there were printers, there were so many things that used to happen because of the digital analog printers, analog printing that used to happen at that time for the photographs. But today, the video cameras is a mobile. Your phone, not only of from radio, from your camera, everything is your mobile. Even sooner or later, people will stop buying clocks or watch because mobile will become your phone. A mobile will become your clock. In a similar fashion, every revolution results in new jobs, new businesses, and old businesses, the legacy businesses, will change. Hence, this message is very, very important for all of us that this is something which will happen. This is going to happen, and people need to continue with the uh, with this change. Otherwise, reskilling is required, unskilling is required. If we won't do it, it will be a problem. If I come to the disruptive technology, Internet of Things, the number shows it will be everywhere. New cars, all people will be spending time, spending money. We are expecting approximately 1.7 trillion worth of money by this year to be spent only on Internet of Things or digitalization. Manufacturing, all of these industries will get disrupted because of these Internet of Things based technology. I personally worked on the Mahindra Reva car, and I really like to give this as an example. It is a green car, it's an electric car. Okay. But when I was participating in the design of this car and the working of this car, we realized, and there are 130 plus sensors that are put into this car. And through a mobile app, you can switch on the AC, switch off the AC, switch on the car. You can see where you are. The car will tell you that you left my door open. So there's a two-way communication, the connected car that happens. Okay. So there's a technology change, not only a green car, but also a connected car, which is talking to their owner through a mobile, through a desktop. And that's how, it's a new technology. But when we started selling it, it's a small car with a battery. So nobody was buying it because it was very expensive. So we had to change the battery as a service. So you have a battery, you pay monthly charge for the battery, and after 5 years, we'll replace the battery. That was the kind of model of the new business model that we had to bring so that people start buying the car. Okay. So the change in technology, change in business model, and because of the climate and many other things, it's a change in the way things happen in the society. Now, another example I like to give, there was a lady in Jaipur who was driving this car, and as you can see, it's a small car. The back tire of this car got stuck into a pit. So, the call center agent was seeing through sensors that the car is running, but, the tire is running, but the car is not moving. So he got a bit confused that what is happening. The car is, the tire is running, but the car is not moving. So he called up that lady and he said, "Madam, it looks there's something wrong. Can I help you?" That shows the level of customer care or the customer relationship we can have because of the amount of data that can come. So these kind of innovation can come, and if you know about the call centers, the call center agents are trained as per the script. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. But we had never captured that there will be a time when the sensor of tire will be sending that I'm moving, but the car won't be moving. And that call center agent called up, and the amount of good feedback and the positive messages we got from our customers was excellent. That's how the things will change. The connection, this technology will bring huge amount of change in the society with the way we manage our customers, the way we work with our technology. It tells you how much battery is left, how many more kilometers can you run. It will tell you where is the nearest charging station, so on and so forth. So now I'm talking only about car. So, all three things, that's why we call it a revolution. Okay. If I think about how the value chain works, So there are sensors in the device that sends data. So there is an event that gets generated that get transported to the centralized location through some level of connectivity. So you need a connectivity. It can be a SIM, it can be a wire, it can be any other way by which you can connect and get the data from the device to a centralized location. Now, there are more of the mobile or cellular connectivity that is being used, but we have multiple other connectivity protocols and connectivity connect ways, because you all are, most of you are from the IT and communication. There are LoRa, there is Sigfox, there are many kind of other technology that are coming for the connectivity or the transportation purpose. Then it comes to the storage. It get in real-time data streams comes and gets into the data platform, and you store it. And then depending upon the analytics, you keep on triggering some kind of actions because of the kind of data that you have generated, and you can have a presentation layer, and you can do a rating and billing. This is the end-to-end how the IoT value chain works. And we also add the end-to-end managed services operations. So the call centers of today will have to get changed so that they will understand about the device or the thing, hardware and connectivity and IT. So a single product of IT, a single product of car, a single product of connectivity, that will not work in future. The future will be when all these three will be combined together and people will be required to learn all of them. That means the future education or the current education also requires people to understand both, say, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, communication engineering, telecommunication engineering, and also IT. Otherwise, you will not be able to run such kind of solutions which are integrating the hardware through connectivity to the software IoT platform. If I start thinking about any of the industry segment, whether it is manufacturing, public sector, financial services, consumers, consumer products, utilities, logistics, everything is getting impacted because of IoT technologies. Not only digital, but also IoT, which is specifically with devices connected. Okay. So because there is no industry that is not getting impacted, and I'll just like to smile and say even the education industry is getting impacted and will get impacted, because now we have robots with AI who can teach subjects and will have much more knowledge than many of our current teachers. So there is an impact and everybody's using it, and the future will be how will we use it. When we think about the government, there are three main participants, and academia is very important for us because you are creating the future. You need to see how the new skills can be built and how people are aware of, students are aware of, for the new kind of jobs that will be generated. Government has done quite a good job by having the national electronics policy, national digital policy, national platform policy, standards, platform, IoT COE, AI COE. It was so surprising that the Niti Aayog and the government of India spent money on creating such kind of COEs across India. But the government needs to do more on the data protection, the cyber security kind of things, so that we can ensure that the progress and the growth can happen. Among the industry, especially in the MSME side, people are still trying to learn what how to move to digital technologies. At one side we are trying to compete with China, we are trying to compete with many other locations, and so we need to gear up with the quality, the production quality, the zero defect kind of thing, and ensure that the cost and the pricing can also be better. So to improve our standards, to improve our productivity, improve the way we work, there is a need for industry to adopt latest technologies. And without doing this, people will not be in a position to compete with the international world. One thing I want to add, companies like Tata's, Reliance, Mahindra's, they are already investing into it. Maruti and many other larger organizations. The main impact is going to come to the MSME sector, where they have less awareness. They need to be trained and told what is the path to be followed. They need to be informed what is the way to reach it so that we can make them competitive. So there is a need for complete training and skills to be developed for industry, within industry, and through government and through academia for these. We are working with, I'm personally working with, through my IET channels, with number of universities and trying to see how can we have an IoT COEs in their institutions. How can we start a credit course in the institution for the students to learn and be skilled enough to take a job, and focus on labs and live experience so that a skill building can happen. All of these things are happening, and if you see all the three things, whether it's a COE is being created by the government, whether the industry needs some level of program management, R&D to solve challenges and skills, everybody looks towards the academia to provide us that skilled resource so that we can fight with the challenges coming. From the global, I now like to come to the Indian environment. And if you see, in the last few years, the smart city, the Arogya Setu app, the Jan Dhan Yojana, the devices to be put into the vehicles, commercial vehicles across India, satellites moving, all of them are trying to gear up for the 50 billion plus market which the government of India is trying to create for the digital world in India. If you just think of Ganga rejuvenation or a smart transport or a smart environment, everything is using how sensors, how platforms, how communication, everything will be used. Now we are trying to work on the remote patient monitoring. And, during the COVID time, sometimes, we need to see how COVID time helped in the telemedicine kind of growth in India. We started the telemedicine and the telecom, the telehealth, all of these things started. And the huge amount of trainings that happened were excellent. There's a huge amount of jobs that are getting created. And I think you all should be aware of how these things will happen, whether it's a smart building for energy management, smart environment, transportation, everything requires lots of technology enhancements, and the skills that will be required to create this are still not available. So it's time for all of you to start thinking about this and see what can we do. Whether it's a climate change, water waste management, sanitation, everywhere the government is trying to work on digital technologies. This is one of the good example which I have, and that is something being used. Long back in India, people had Asha Didis were created. Two ladies in every gram panchayat or a village who were supposed to go to each and every house, check the pregnant women, give them some level of vaccinations, and when the child is born, give them the proper vaccination. That was the way they were trained on doing it. The current government thought, how can they improve the infrastructure in these areas? How can they further train it so that there are video conferencing facilities available, there are trained staff available, there is a devices available on these primary healthcare centers in villages, so that people can, the doctors from Delhi, Bombay, big cities can start interacting with the villagers and try to resolve their problems where they are, instead of letting them come to the city. So it will improve the productivity, it will reduce the travel. If they are required only for essential areas, then they will be required to come to the cities for their checkups, for their treatment. Right now, if you remember the BharatNet project, the BharatNet project was implementation of broadband connectivity in all the 2,500, 2 lakhs, gram panchayats in India, around 600,000 gram panchayats. Okay. Now there is a project which started by Government of India, which is called WING, which is the providing the, Wi-Fi connectivity in the villages, how to create the hotspot in the villages. All of these things are happening currently. It is so good to see the standards have been identified for these for these devices, how the protocols will happen, and how the ecosystem will happen, so that the connectivity is there, the devices are there, the video conferencing facility is there, then doctors can also be there to provide guidance to the people who are really needed in the village. So this is another example of how in it's a healthcare industry, latest technologies have been used and can provide lots and lots of uh, you know uh, benefits. The manufacturing industry, if you keep on thinking about how the manufacturing industry has been benefited, there is something called Industry 4.0. In India, it is because we have a different kind of setup for micro, small, and medium industries. We are calling it Samarth 4.0 for India specifically. So how can we help in digitalization? But if you go to the Chakan plant of Mahindra's, or you go to the Manesar plant of Maruti, most of the work is happening through robots. And how they have been able to implement the Industry 4.0 and how they are integrating their industry, their factories, so that they all can join hands and they all can do it and they can continue. There's a long way to go. During the COVID time, if you start thinking, the teachers could teach their students to work from home. The IT industries continued working because people were using cloud, people were having internet, people were having laptops or the desktops at home so that they can continue their job. There was less productivity loss. There were minimal productivity loss in the service industries, especially the IT or the communication. But if you think about the manufacturing industry, the lockdown means the complete stoppage of the factory, no work, no production, because you were dependent upon human to start the machine, start from the raw material to everything. It was humans who were doing it. Now people are realizing in India that there's a need for digitalization, remote monitoring, remote access to the production plant, so that with the least amount of impact of such kind of lockdowns, people can continue with their productivity. So Industry 4.0 is a German word or the American or Western word. In India, we have Samarth, which is being used. There's a in-premise personal tracking kind of solution, on-premise. Especially in the states like Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, where there are Maoist or Naxalites kind of problems, there are employees in the railways who are supposed to walk on the rail track and try to see if the rail track is fine or not, and they physically verify, physically check it. Such people were given such kind of some gadgets so that they can be tracked whether they are doing it or not. In case they find any problem, instead of coming back and telling, they can do it. You can imagine such kind of remote areas might not have proper connectivity. So these SOS calls or SMS can be given in a very, very weak connectivity or even through satellite in case of emergency. So that's how such kind of solutions have been used to provide people tracking for security and safety. The smart campus or the smart cities, everything gets connected, whether it's a CCTV cameras, PAN board, sensors, mobile devices, everything is getting connected and providing data so that people can use it. And in the education sector also, in the smart campus, you have a touch boards through Wi-Fi, you can connect to everything. And that's how the future looks like the smart campus. Many of the private institutes have already moved to the smart campuses. And I really feel that as a department, if you feel that something can be implemented, that will be really great. CCTV cameras are now everywhere, which is reducing the theft, security risk. And, we personally implemented it in Lucknow. We were able to save number of kidnapping, number of thefts of the cars. We could, the moment the theft happened, how soon can you capture it? How soon can you, track it? Is something which has been possible using CCTV cameras and the telematic device. I can keep on continuing. And every industry I speak, this is an impact. This is an example of a virtual mirror, in a boutique. So instead of you changing in a trial room every dress and seeing yourself in a mirror and trying to see how you look like, You touch it and you will get a feel of how will you look like in a mirror. So if a color is changed, how will you look? If this style is changed, how you look? Such kind of virtual digital cameras, smart mirrors are already available. So this is happening. Hospitals, hospitality sector, the mass sports entertainment. You can see the as close as you want the football match. Right now, the Euro Cup is happening. Everybody is watching it. You can review and you can see how a particular thing happened. So there's a great deal of digital usage in hospitality and the sports sector. In a camp, if you go live, if you go virtually see a match, you can say this is the seat where I want to sit and see the match from the seat, and you can virtually be there and see it. I recently found a startup started a virtual reality kind of business where you can participate in the aartis of many big temples, or you can go to a church and attend a mass. So if it is a Vaishno Devi Aarti or a Tirupati Balaji Aarti, you just pay a money, and from a virtual gadget, while sitting at home, you will see as if you are participating in the live Aarti. So many people have started using it. So what I'm trying to tell you that these digital technologies are giving different kind of business models, and people are really using these technologies to find ways of how they can use and do it. While the first slide I told you that there are job losses whenever there is new technology. Okay. But what we try to work with another project, another company, how to serve the unserved. So on the left-hand side, you can see e-rickshaw. This e-rickshaw can be moved and can be changed or collapsed into a, in Hindi, we call it thela, where you can sell the vegetables. So these e-rickshaws start from cities like Meerut, Muzaffarnagar, and within the 25-kilometer range, they will collect all the vegetables, fruits, and they will take from the farmers whatever they like to have next day. So they bring back to the city, sell them in the evening, and utilize this vehicle as a transportation device during the day, so that it will help as an Amazon for the villages. And what we just started doing it, we added some kind of medical devices into this vehicle. So you can check your temperature, blood pressure, sugar, electronic, digital ECG. And if there is some problem, only then you will go back to the city. If you come to the city and you do a particular test, you might have to pay some to say 250 rupees. But this particular person in the car, in the e-rickshaw vehicle will charge you only 50. So there's a business model, there's a commercial angle to it, so that they can start, earning, and it's a sustainable model. It is a new kind of thing which we started. It is giving new jobs, new kind of services. Places where there were no hospitals, there were no blood test kind of things available, or such kind of checkings. The driver was trained so that they can do minimum things and allow such kind of services at doorstep of the villagers. This has been working well. A lot of new jobs that can be created. It will also reduce the carbon footprint. It will be many other things which we are thinking. How can we put our soil sensors into it so the farmer can bring soil and they can be told which nutrient is weak, what kind of insecticide, pesticide that can be used. We are using a water sensors which will be able to tell the quality of water. We are putting a drone into it which will take pictures of the farms, will see the kind of insects and the pests which are available, and will provide the data to a centralized research labs which will be able to guide the farmer what is the kind of pest controls and insecticides they should be using. This is one of the best use of technology. In April 2016, Art of Living came out with the with an article in the newspaper that using technology they were able to revive. You all know a place called Latur. Latur used to be a famine drought affected area with no water. In last few years, the government has started sending water through railways, and so that people are not dying because of lack of water. But Art of Living found through satellites, that there used to be thousands of years back, there used to be a river, 18.5 kilometer river that used to flow in that region. Okay. They started working on it. They started reviving that river, and they were able to revive around 4.5 kilometers of that river through the kind of project they were doing. We, as Aries, as a company, we requested the Art of Living, and we told them that we have a technology which will allow them to use the technology to do such kind of work more. Okay. And to my surprise, I got an appointment with C.C. Ravishankarji. He understood, he tried to understand the technology. He allowed and he asked his team to start using it. We started delivering it. And as a result, the same team of experts, now they don't have to travel to each and every location. From the kind of remote sensing, remote data, they are able to see from remote locations what can be the way to revive the rivers. They now have been able to start in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu also, and many other places in Maharashtra, and they are reviving different water bodies. I feel that this is the best use of technology. How can we revive, rivers or lakes, and how can we bring water for people who are thirsty, who are dying because of lack of water? So that's the use of technology in the social sector. While I'm talking about digital technologies, and I have given you a number of examples, one thing which we all have to understand that when we use new technologies, there are so many parties attached, whether they're academia, research, standards, government, industry, technology related to telecommunication, system integrators. There are lots of issues which still to be managed, and the current roadblocks are more of an interoperability. Each and every device has their own protocols to provide data. We are not having uniform standards. The India, especially as a market with a huge amount of opportunity, but such a cost-sensitive market that the cost sensitivity really stop you from a radical growth that can happen because of this security and data privacy. But I must mention here that the skill gap is the biggest showstopper right now, because we do not have people with skills who can work on such kind of things. That's all from my side. I've taken quite a good time of yours. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Vipin?
Okay, sir, let me see if there are any questions from the participant side.
At least it was a refreshing for people to see what is happening because of the latest technologies. Okay, Vipin, I think we have spent 40 minutes and this time was for the questions.
I think there will be the question actually be shared. Maybe. Bipin, are you looking? Sahil sir?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
So is there any question?
Kamlesh sir, just waiting for certain questions if participant asks. So I have written down on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So let's wait for 1-2 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes, sir. Rishi sir, I have received one question from Ms. Shalini, and she's asking, is there any collaborative initiative for academics?
There are multiple collaborative initiatives. There are a number of industries which are trying to work with the academia to create these COEs. There are a lot of government initiatives, especially from the Department of Science and Technology, where they are investing in creating research labs in the universities. And there are institutions like IET, where I am the chair for the Future Technology Panel, which are also participating with the universities and the colleges to see how they can collaborate to first train the trainer, as well as creating these labs and helping the students and faculty to create some new solutions. So yes, there are all three ways. Industry is spending money with academia, government is spending, as well as the institutions like IET and NASSCOM also.
So, sir, in that case, how people can approach, to that industry or to the other government institutions who are, helping in this field for the academia?
Sahil, as I said, Department of Science and Technology is the nodal authority which is spending money in creating such kind of, uh, initiatives with the universities. IET, if I can give you the email IDs, but you can also go and check from the web the people whom you can connect and start taking it forward. And from the industry perspective, I'm not sure if your college or your institute have this industry connect kind of initiatives where the industry also invest in creating some COEs and training skills. So, DSC, Department of Science and Technology, industry forums, and such kind of institutions like NASSCOM and IET. They can be accessed to emails or calls or a visit, and they will be happy to support you.
Okay, thank you, sir. There is one more question from Professor P.M. Pazani, and he's asking what are the different ways of implementing IoT in education field?
So in the education field, I say, the practical in the IoT, see if you start from a classroom, okay, with the kind of digital technologies coming, from smart board, that's also a device that communicates, okay. From a smart board, you can easily go and print. People can see from the smart board on their laptops, virtually sitting anywhere. So the industry is getting revolutionized, or there is I say, there is a lot of changes happening in the education industry, education way. This concept of BYJU'S all are coming. So from the way that education happens, the kind of things that are used for educating a smart classroom, smart board, accesses to their laptops, everything is happening where you can use and do it. The other thing which is happening is there's a future, and I don't want to scare all of you, but there's a possibility, and this is a discussion that is happening, that there will be a robot which will become a teacher. Because that robot will have all using machine learning and artificial intelligence, will be intelligent enough to talk about a subject and teach to the students and even answer them. Okay. So technology is moving into that direction. So the education field is going to see a lot of transformation in the near future. And if you see, because of COVID, that transformation has already started coming. Even in schools and colleges, there's a remote teaching that is happening. The way the examination happens are becoming different, changing, and the use of gadgets is becoming more and more useful. And the future will be the artificial intelligence-based robotic teachers who will be teaching, which will be having much more data and knowledge about a particular subject, and they can answer any questions of the students.
Okay, there are a few more questions, sir. And one question is from Dr. Ananta, and she's asking, what are the main challenges of IoT?
So the main challenges of IoT is the availability of the sensors. So there's a need for R&D and more research to be done on more sensors at a lower cost. Okay. Right now, most of the sensors are getting procured from US and Germany and Japan, and even China, because we do not do R&D and develop such kind of solutions, such kind of sensors. So there's a need for sensors. The connectivity all over India, if you see, there are places where there's a lack of connectivity, the proper connectivity is not there. So there is a need for us to see how the proper connectivity is required, or different modes of connectivity can be used. So there, people only feel, now when we have mobile, that there's only cellular connectivity, but there are many other ways of connecting or communicating. which are required. So there's a and definitely in my last slide I mentioned that there are no lack of standards, lack of interoperability, lack of the cost sensitivity, data privacy, and when you have multiple devices connected, the vulnerability of hack or the security breach will be high. How will you handle it? How will you manage it? All of these are challenges. And I again repeat, the basic major challenge is the skill. We do not have people who understand machines, connectivity, and IT all together. And that skill gap is a major gap which we already have facing right now.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question from Dr. Subramani, and he's asking for how to ensure the security using IoT in automatic cars in INT 4.0.
So connectivity, see, first, when there are so many talking devices, I'm using the word talking devices, the vulnerability is high. Okay. Right now, for the data protection, the security policies are not clearly defined by the government of India. And the legal laws are also not very well defined. Just for the sake of example, if a autonomous car hits somebody and that person gets hit, who will be the person who will be legally, what is the legal norm? Who will be punished? Whether the car manufacturer or the connectivity provider or the software provider, we really don't know because there was no one sitting and somebody got hit. Okay, so that means the legal laws and processes are also not available. So coming back to your question that how can we make it secure? There are vulnerability, there's no doubt, but we need to go and check few things. When the device are created, there are norms for device testing. And how can you check the vulnerability of device when a penetration on a device? We have testing also on the network layer. And we also have IT services or mobile app level testing on vulnerability, penetration, security testing can be done. But when you combine all these three together, the hardware, the software, and the connectivity, at that time, these become very difficult. And we must try to check if there is a way to handle it, and if these companies have already done that check or not. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir. There is one last question from Dr. Sarvananan Subha, and she's asking, what are the basic needs or things to start a research in IoT by an individual?
So, to my thought, I give you a very different kind of example, and then you can start thinking what will be required. So, in my view, I had gone to a municipal commissioner long back. I was trying to sell the street light monitoring system. Just 1 minute. So the municipal commissioner kept on hearing me for a while. And then he said, Dr. Bhatnagar, in my area, there are more mosquitoes and people are dying of dengue. Do you have a sensor that can tell me where the density of mosquitoes are more so that I can, with my limited resources, I can send people with medicines there and the impact will be higher and we'll be able to save some lives. Okay. I met a police commissioner and he said there are 500 young boys and girls driving on a highway die because of cattle on the road, okay, every day. Okay. That's the kind of real-time problem. So my answer, Sahil, is that we need to find what is the real-time problem and how should we try to work and do R&D to solve that problem. Okay. So I went to the IIT Hyderabad and requested, do you have a sensor that can give me the density of mosquitoes? They said we have a pest sensor and we can work for 10-15 days and try to see if we can make it a mosquito density sensor. They did an R&D and they worked and they created and gave me in a 2-week time a sensor that can provide a density of mosquitoes at a given location. Okay. That's what is required. Try to find a problem and how will you resolve it? What kind of sensors or what kind of connectivity and what kind of IT services, IT information platform will be required to resolve it? Currently, I'm part of a telemedicine pilot where in a location where there's no connectivity. Okay. And we are trying to see how will we connect and provide connectivity to that place, a village, a remote village in Manipur. Okay. So that, a person sitting in Bombay or Delhi can, a doctor sitting there can provide them the, uh, telehealth. Okay. So for the real-time problems, if we start taking those real-time problems and start working on finding solution to it, whether it can be a sensor, whether it can be a new communication technology at a different wavelength or a frequency, or a different kind of IT stack, is what we have to see. Similar, people in India were facing huge amount of problem in getting taxis. They had to go to a taxi stand. Ola resolved that problem. We were supposed to find the cheap hotels, best hotels. Oyo resolve that problem. So on and so forth. We have to find the problem which is impacting us and how to resolve it, and then do research. And research for IoTs for the end-to-end solution. Whether you find a sensor or a new connectivity or an IT, how to provide a solution to the end customer for the challenges they are facing is what we need to see. I hope I have answered you.
Yes, thank you, sir. There are one or two questions more the participant have sent me. And one question from Umaya Parvati, and that is, what are the challenges in devising sensors for processing different kind of signals?
In my view, the challenge for the sensors for taking different kind of data is more of the R&D effort that is required for the fabrication of the at a silicon level. Okay, because when sensors are there, sensors are at a very minute level, and because the fabrication, only the design facilities are available, and we are not able to fabricate the chips in India. Most of the chips get manufactured outside India. That to me is the biggest problem right now for the different kind of sensors with multiple kind of data required. Otherwise, skill level is also required, but many people have such kind of skills available to create those sensors in India and design it. But fabricating, testing it is something which takes a lot of effort. That to me looks like a bigger challenge. And then the production support is not in India at all. Everything is getting produced from the chip level outside India. There's a huge amount of investment required for the fab creation and the chip creations in India, where there's a huge investment from both government and industry required, which is not happening. So that to me looks like a bigger challenge in the manufacturing of sensors with multiple data requirements.
Thank you, sir. One last question is again from Dr. Ananta, and that is, what is the difference between IoT and IIoT?
So IIoT is Industrial Internet of Things, and IoT is Internet of Things. So when there's specifically for industry segment, then it is called IIoT, and that's very specific for the manufacturing industry. The term is being used as IIoT. Otherwise, Internet of Things is a common word which takes over all kind of device communicating and the data being used.
So I think here are the end of questions, and now I will just say that I would propose a thanks. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to you, sir, Dr. Bhatnagar, and thanks for giving us time. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and your new ideas. And it would be we would be very happy if you be connected with us for the upcoming sessions also. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all the participants to hear and to share the questions, asking the questions. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sahil. Thank you, Kamleji. Thank you, Vipin. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
So Kamlesh sir, shall we end the meeting now? Ravi, please end the meeting and stop the live.
Yeah, yeah. And